On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, the two biggest words, the two best words in sports, Game 7, Sixers, Celtics. Well, we just simply are going to break it down right now, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, you are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host and partner, as always, Inquirer.com, Sixers beat writer. He is Keith Pompey. Keith, what's going on, man?
What's good, D? How you been, bro?
Good, man. Good, man. Better than Thursday, because we got a Game 7 right in front of us, man.
And we can see me too. I'm here, y'all. I'm really here. I'm really
no more
here.
Darkness. Yeah,
no more darkness. We hope.
We hope. So we do thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, sticking it out with us all season long and through the playoffs. We'll see if this thing keeps going. And remember, Locked On 76ers is the place to be if they do, in fact, keep going, free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube at Locked On 76ers. Later in the show, we'll give our keys to the game. We're going to preview it, but we're also going to talk about some little strategy, right? Some little strategy from Doc Rivers maybe for this one. Joe Mazzulla made a change in Game 6 after the Sixers, and Doc Rivers countered in Game 5 with a little Daniel House move. Joe Mazzulla went with the Robert Williams, the two bigs, in the starting lineup with Al Horford. That worked for them. You would expect that to keep going. Is there something else the 76ers and Doc Rivers with his coaching staff can do maybe in this Game 7? Well, Keith, we are here. It's here. And here we are with a game number 7, man. It's for all the marbles here to keep your season alive, move forward. We were at practice, and we heard from Tobias Harris, George Niang, and Doc Rivers, and they just talked about some things that didn't go right in game number 6, where they feel like they are correctable things. They feel like they are in a pretty good spot still going into Boston, even though they would have liked to have wrapped it up on Thursday night. But here we are, man. Game 7, Sixers Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's funny. You said you like Game 7s. I don't like Game 7s because, I mean, if I'm a coach, I don't like Game 7s.
Oh, yeah.
Only how I like a Game 7 is my team was down 3-2 or, 3-1. But if I'm up, I'm like, okay, we got a Game 7 winner take all. I don't know if I like that. But that's just me. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot going on. To me, if you're the 76ers, I hate that people don't like you bringing up the history, but you have to. Right now the Sixers are 6-11 in Game 7s. They're 1-9 on the road in Game 7s. So they lost their last 3 Game 7s, and they lost their last 3 on the road. So the history is not on the 76ers side. But throughout this season, we kept saying that this team has a different feel. And, everybody's talking about making adjustments, and they are making some in both squads. But right now, we look at the history of this team not being able to get out of the second round since 2001. We look at the history of them losing to the Boston Celtics and all this and that. This right now, D, is one of the biggest games in the 76ers history, at least since going to the championship. So, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see what they can do. I'm excited to see what Joel Embiid does, see if James Harden can have a bounce back, and see Jason Tatum. That's the guy. I think that he, crazy as it sounds, if he comes out on fire, the Sixers might be in trouble.
Oh, of course. If either he or Brown go off, that they have the capability of going crazy. And we go back to the Milwaukee series a year ago in this same spot, but a Game 6 where Jason Tatum had 46 points to force that Game 7, and they went in there and they beat Milwaukee the way that they did. So, yeah, they're more than capable, either one of them, of going off. They did not have big games. We're talking about 19 and 17 points between them two. Marcus Smart was the one who led them in scoring with a total of 22 points. So, Yeah, man, they can go off at any given moment. And do you feel that way about Joel Embiid or James Harden or
No,
Tyrese Maxey, that they can go off at any given moment?
no, the reason why I'm saying that, the reason why I'm pinpointing Tatum, I think everybody could go off, but the problem is Tatum has struggled mightily in the first three quarters of most of these games. You know what I mean? Like he just struggled. I mean, there's only been one player who was worse than him, and that's been Al Horford. So the thing is, the reason why I'm a little concerned about him more so than anybody else is that if he gets his rhythm early and he rides that and that crowd gets electric, that's the only reason why I'm concerned with him. Now, I do expect Joel Embiid to have a phenomenal game. You know,
Really?
the thing about Harden, it's a little iffy with him. You know what I mean? Like we've seen great James Harden and we've seen poor James Harden. Tyrese Maxey, he's gotten better as the games have gone, the series has gone along, right? So the one guy, if we're talking about the Sixers, the guy that I'm a little leery of, or I really want to stay tuned to, is two of them. One is Harden, and the second one is Tobias Harris. You know what I mean? And the thing about Tobias is, like we talked about this before, you don't got to get a lot of shots. You don't have to score a lot of points. But how are you impacting the game other ways? Are you grabbing the rebounds? Are you defending? Are you doing stuff? Now, when the ball gets swung to you, are you hesitating, or are you just going straight up strong? And are knocking down threes? So, but for those two guys, Harden and Harris are the two guys that I really want to pay attention to see, like, what are they going to do.
So this is, I agree with you, the biggest game, no doubt, in the Joel Embiid era. This is just that, Game 7 for the right to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. It now takes over the Game 7 against the Atlanta Hawks a couple of years ago. And for the Tobias Harris piece, as you just mentioned him, he did play good defense. You give him that, but the offensive side was just unacceptable, and he has to be better. He took 6 shots in that first quarter, and he was 1 for 6. He took 1 shot in the second quarter, did not shoot in 23 plus minutes of a possible 24 minutes in the second half. That can't happen. No excuses on that one whatsoever. So at some point, you can't tell me the ball didn't find him a few times for him to make a decision to do something. It's one thing to swing the ball. It's another thing to have a smaller guy when you make a decision that you're going to take that guy and work him for a bucket. So he has to be better. You're 100% right. Can he be? Because he's an integral part, man. And if his defense is working, I understand you might get a little fatigued and you might get tired. Right now, it's the playoffs. It's Game 6, like it was on Thursday. And in this case, it's Game 7. You got to muster up whatever you can muster up and get it done. Even if you have to go against and break off a play call because you see a situation, you know what? After I make that basket, Keith, me and you as my teammate, who you might be upset because I didn't do one thing, we'll talk about it after the fact. Here's what I saw. Here's why I did it. I got the 2 or 3 points on the board for us to extend our lead, maybe tie the game or cut the lead to single digits or cut the lead to 2 in that place, in that type of place, in that type of situation. He has to be better, 100%, no question about it. He talked about it when we were at practice. Keith, post-practice, ball movement. The ball has to continue to move. They have to be sharp. He felt like they had good shots. They didn't make them. They keep saying it, make or miss league. He had those early. You cannot not take shots in the second half after having that. The James Harden piece, it's funny, Keith, during the show on Friday on The Fanatic, during my show, I had one person say it on the phones, and I had one person send it to me on social media. They gave me the timeline, of course, of the James Harden games 1 through 6. Game 1, he had a big game. Games 2 and 3, not so good. Game 4 had the big game. Game 5, decent game statistically, and we know how he played, 17, 10, and 8. Game 6, none. So they were basically looking at it, win, 2 losses, win, 2 losses, and now the pattern says win for game number 7. James Harden has a much better game than he did on Thursday. So if it's that easy, then the Sixers are winning, if that's the case, because that'll also mean Tobias Harris is going to play a good game too, because he played well in Game 1. He played well in Game 4 and 5. Game 6, not so much. They need him in Game 7. You said Joel Embiid. I don't want to brush past this one real fast. You said you feel like Embiid is going to have a big game. What makes you think that with this game 7?
I mean, first of all, I think the 2 days off is good for him and good for his knee. From what I heard, he's been going hard every day, doing stuff trying to get his conditioning up. But from a pain threshold, I feel like he's going to be good. I also feel like Joel is all about, even though he won't say it, I think he's all about legacy. I do. And I think that he knows that this is the third time that he's been in the game 7 and in the second round, right? So the first year was like he was crying on his way back to the locker room because of the 4 bounce. The second time he had the torn meniscus and his right knee, and everybody said this, and then Ben Simmons passed up the layup in the whole 9, and he apologized to the fans. I feel like this is the third time that he's been there. And yes, he is the MVP. He's improved and he's become a better player. But this is something that I don't think he really wants on his resume. Like, he does not want to go down as this guy that couldn't do it. Now, not to say that eventually he won't get out of there, but I think for right now in this season, he's determined to do whatever he does so it ain't his fault that we're saying they lost. And you know what I mean? So I feel as if that Joel is due for a big game. I do. I mean, when he plays hard, there is no more unstoppable player in the NBA. None. No one. No one. You've seen it. I've seen it. And we're not saying it because we cover the Sixers. I mean, basketball. I know basketball. We've seen how dominating this guy is. And if he comes to play, I don't think they're going to be able to stop him.
I'm very curious to see what type of force he will be. On the low block, he has 17. I saw a stat that he had 17 post touches in the game on Thursday. It's not bad. Of course, it's not bad at all. And there's some work to be done there in the mid-range where he's able to see over the defense, read all of that, and go to work with his jump shot from there. It wasn't as automatic as, or at least getting the shots there, but he got to the free throw line, was able to knock down his free throws, missing just one in the game. So, yeah, if he can come out and be that dominant force and match whatever is happening, potentially to your point of Jason Tatum earlier, then we'll see how that goes. And then it's just that collective effort, man. Everybody has to leave everything on the line. You have to go out there, be your best. Doc Rivers has to empty the bucket of Sixers there. And we'll see if that is something that he may actually do also in this game. And that's something I want to ask you next, Keith. Is there another secret weapon, if you will? Is there another thing that Doc Rivers can do to counter what already worked now for what happened in the last game where Joe Mazzulla again switched up the starting lineup and put Robert Williams back in the front court with Al Horford and Jason Tatum? Only 2 players off the bench, Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White. They both scored decently enough to help win the game, especially Brogdon early, some big shots late from Derek White to extend their lead. And now the Sixers, it's their turn to maybe make another move, not necessarily starting, but in terms of what comes off the bench. I'll ask you that one next, and I wonder what the people think about this one too. We'll get into that next right here, Locked On 76ers. Welcome back, Locked On 76ers. That is Keith Pompey. I'm Devon Givens, and we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Tomorrow on the show, we will be recapping Game 7 of the semifinal matchup. The winner will move on to the Eastern Conference Finals to take on the already advancing Miami Heat after beating the New York Knicks on Friday night. We'll do that again tomorrow on our next episode here on Locked On 76ers. Keith, is there anything else that, quite frankly, either one of these coaches can do to help out in this game? Because there is no tomorrow if you lose. So everything is on the table for this particular Game 7 in Boston. Is there, starting with Doc Rivers, is there anything else that you could potentially see maybe Doc Rivers doing to help secure a victory on the road?
Well, the one thing is, I think what he might want to try to do is slow the pace down a little bit, because it just seems like whenever they get out and run, I mean, believe it or not, I know Maxey is a good runner, but it seems like whenever Boston gets out and run, they score a lot of points in transition. That's killing them, right? I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Doc probably reduce his rotation too.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't be. I mean, I could see it being a game where, because Paul Reed, it seems like the last couple of games is a little bit too big for him.
Yeah.
So it could be a game where, PJ Tucker comes out a little bit early, and then they start going small ball lineups with him at the 5 at times. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know if that's a good matchup for the Sixers, but you could see that. But if not, I can see them probably going back to D House a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, if they don't do it, and the reason why, if they don't reduce it, the reason why I'm saying that is because I felt like, they say role players tend to play better at home, but he played phenomenally in game 5 on the road. And he was a big jolt of energy for him. And I felt like Doc went away from him early. Like, Doc might have, I ain't gonna say panic, but it was like, yo, this ain't working. This guy's not giving me instant stuff. Instead of like sticking with him for a couple more possessions, I felt like he got the hook. You know what I mean? So, but I do feel like the way that he makes a game like ugly, gets out, gets steals, does all types of stuff. That's the type of guy you need to provide a spark and some energy. You know what I mean? I do. Now, we talked about it off camera, like Shake Milton's a guy, but I don't know if Doc has that faith in him right now to come in there in the game 7, where it's possession by possession, knowing that people are going to attack him on the defensive end, that he has faith in there and to put him out there and try to steal a couple possessions. I don't know if the coach has the faith in him.
Yeah, it was either him or, to your point, when you go to Reed and it seems like it's just not working for him right now, does he go to one of the veteran bigs just to spell Joel if he doesn't want to go with the small ball, PJ Tucker? And with that, is that Montrezl Harrell or is it Dwayne Dedmon? Dwayne Dedmon has played in these types of games before with the Miami Heat, or at least being a part of it. Montrezl Harrell, not necessarily a great playoff record, but if you're going to try to, again, just give Joel Embiid and steal some minutes while he's resting, and that you don't have faith in Paul Reed in that spot, then I would imagine he would go with the veteran. And to your point, maybe it is someone like PJ Tucker where they go small. Maybe Tobias Harris plays the 5 a little bit because he can bang with Al Horford maybe, or that at least putting a body on Robert Williams because he's not going to try to get his own shot on his own. It has to be created by a teammate with an alley-oop or a pass for a dunk or an offensive rebound, putbacks type of situation running the floor, and at least Tobias Harris can keep up with him. I am very curious to see the chess match or the whatever next maneuver there might be, because again, this is it. So as you said, this is a game where maybe he shortens the bench. Maybe we only see DeAnthony Melton and George Niang. I don't know. Maybe we only see those 2 guys, but maybe we do see Daniel House for a couple of minutes. I'm very curious to see how he sprinkles some of those minutes in there, because you would imagine that the other guys are going to definitely play. If it's a close game, they're going to play upwards of 38 to 40 minutes, if not more.
And I think George might have gave us a little something today. Pay attention to when he was asked, "Are you prepared to play more minutes?" And he says, "No, what do you think?" Yeah, but he got a little smart. But then he apologized to the reporter a little bit later. But at the same time,
well, it's true. Who wouldn't be ready?
Yeah, who wouldn't be ready? But at the same time, I do think that question was being asked because, hey, if they reduce this bench, you're going to have to play some minutes. But let's be real.
Or if PJ Tucker's not knocking down the shots, you might get the first call.
Yeah, true. But the thing about that, I think when we get caught up with the PJ thing, the shots thing, like my thing is, I honestly believe if PJ Tucker was on the floor when that team was going on runs and stuff like that, he would have been able to settle guys down. Because he's the only one on the team that can get in James' face, that can get in Joel's face. No one else can. and nor will anyone else try, right? So when it comes down to PJ, it ain't always about knocking shots. How many times have we seen PJ know that he can't get a rebound, but he tips it to one of his teammates to grab it or does the chips? So, like, yeah, it's great for him to knock down shots, but I'm telling you, there was times where the offense looked crazy. You know what I mean? And it's hard to lead from the bench.
I'm not denying that, but that was their strategy. We're gonna live and we're gonna die with PJ Tucker. I'm speaking as Boston.
Yeah.
So if he's not making them, Keith, and you're missing that shot, you're gonna go on fast breaks. That's an opportunity for you to get a fast break opportunity, short corner three. If it hits off the back of the rim, if it's not bouncing to the left or the right back, it's bouncing this way, going towards the other basket. That's a fast break opportunity. And when he was missing them, I guess that's where Doc Rivers felt like, all right, we got down too much, 15-3. So we had to take him out. He wasn't happy. He dropped himself on that seat. He was ticked off. And I get it. I understand it. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be out there to make shots because he has to take them. That's the bottom line. He has to take them. But if he's not making them, and then defensively they're still running, he was on the floor when it was a 15-3 start by the Boston Celtics, Doc Rivers is going to look to try to get some offensive punch going there too. And so they can respect them and not just shade off of him for the entire every possession down the floor. So that's where the strategy, I understood it. I got it. And I didn't mind it knowing that. But it was just a matter of when was PJ Tucker going to come back in, and could he now start to get into a good rhythm when he's knocking down a few more of those shots, because they were wide open.
Now, but here's the thing. I get what you're saying, right? And PJ did have a lot of shots, but the thing that gets me is
2 for 7, I think he was.
He was 2 for 7 on threes. Yeah. I get it. He was 3 for 8 overall, right?
He made that layup. Yeah.
So yeah, but his shooting percentage was like there was only 3 other people on the team who shot better than PJ on that day, right? And that was George Niang, who was 2 for 3, and then it was Joel Embiid, who was 9 for 19, and it was Tyrese Maxey, who was 9 for 20. The guy who they brought in there, and he played more minutes than PJ, was DeAnthony Melton, right? And DeAnthony Melton really struggled mightily in that third quarter, right? So I get what
when he was 0 for 3.
He was he ended. I think he was 0 for 4.
0 for 4.
Like 0 for 4 in all threes, and he was 0 for 5 for the game. So I understand that. Tobias Harris, Lord have mercy, he was 0 for 6 on threes, right? Now, the thing
all in the first half.
So
no, Tobias wasn't 0 for 6 on threes, was he?
No, I'm sorry, take that back. James Harden was 0 for 6.
Yeah,
Tobias was 0 for 1. He was on 1 for 7.
Right.
But James, so like I get it. But then when you're saying it's like I understand, everybody has different rules. But when you take a guy out and you put another guy in there and you give him more minutes, you best make sure this guy outperforms the other dude. You have to.
He got open looks.
He got open, but the thing is,
gotta make him.
TJ had a co-team high 3 steals.
He did.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's to me, I don't know, man. I get it. Like, I don't know. Like on a night when everybody is missing, and besides George Niang, and then my question is, why doesn't George Niang get more minutes? You know what I mean? So
because he'll give up more points on the other end.
Yeah, but dude, if you
I'm answering your question,
was given. I mean, what I'm saying is you can't have different situations for different people. Like it all has to be right because you're taking George out because of that, but they were scoring a lot of points off of Melton's missed threes too.
Yeah, of course they were getting
and that was like in the defining part of the game too. You're like, yo, so you know what I mean. So that's all I'm saying.
There were some big shots. A lot of guys got a lot of shots. A lot of them missed them. And I wonder how Doc Rivers now approaches the game. The game is going to tell the story of how he'll make his substitutions, whether it's makes or misses, whether it's foul trouble where he has to call a number before he wants to, or Keith, I mean, if they're making them and they go on one of those hot 50% shooting quarters, to start the game or the first half where they're playing well, the game will tell the story of how he's going to make the substitution patterns and who's in, who's out, and all of that. It's a big moment. A lot of these players, Keith, have not been in the spot like this. So,
But and that's another thing. The one dude, only one who's been in that spotlight was Tucker.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see for game number 7 what direction Doc Rivers goes into. With that, our final segment before game number 7, Keith and I are going to give you our keys to this game for, obviously, as we talk about it, for victory for the 76ers. And we'll let you know what we think has to happen in order for them to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's our last segment right here on this episode of Locked On 76ers. All right, folks, welcome back. We appreciate it as always here on Locked On 76ers. That is Keith Pompey. I am Devon Givens, and we have to give our keys to this one as always throughout the season. I'm wondering if we're going to be doing more keys next week for the Eastern Conference Finals. But in order for them to do so, they might need to take our strategy, Keith, and take our keys to the game out there and put them on the whiteboard in the garden. So you might want to pass that off to the coaching staff and see what happens. But all right, man, what are you thinking? What are your keys for this one? Game 7.
I mean, my keys are like you can't abandon stuff too quickly. I mean, I know it's game 7 and it's possession by possession, but I do think that you got to get guys like, well, first of all, the keys is you got to control the boards. Like that's the number one thing. Like in game 6, they went in there in a hostile environment and they killed them on the boards. And basically, the one guy, it was Joel Embiid early on, and it was Tobias Harris.
Game 5.
Huh?
Game 5.
Game 5. Excuse me, game 5. So it was Joel Embiid, and it was Tobias Harris. And that's what I want to see from Tobias again. He needs to grab the boards. He has to have control of the boards. They also got to play smart basketball. Like you can't get into foul trouble. You can't do the reach, and you got to do whatever. And I can't see James getting frustrated with lack of calls because it's going to be tough to get calls on the road in Boston, right? It just is. So, but to me, I also think that, you know what, like Doc, the main thing that they're talking about is, you know, there's a balance. You find a balance on, do I get Embiid the ball or do I take the shot, right? You know, but I feel like he has to have touches because what that does is when you give him the ball, and then he can turn around and face and pass out the double teams before the guy gets there, then all of a sudden you got guys getting free shots, open shots. So I feel like those are the 3 things in my eyes. It's like, hey, you got to get the rebounds. You got to get Embiid involved. You can't run away from him like you did in the 4th quarter. And then thirdly, you know what? They got to play smart ball, and James has to play through things.
Let me ask you that before I give my keys. We haven't talked much about James Harden. So what are you expecting? I know I mentioned the pattern of the games 1 through 6, win one game 1 and game 4, 2, 3, 5, and 6, they lose. So the pattern says that they'll win this game. But what are you expecting from him?
I don't know, man. I'm going to be honest.
Fair enough.
Like, I don't know. Yeah. Because my thing is
his history. So I understand.
Yeah, because
his previous history.
His previous history doesn't really do well in game 7s, right? Or, you know, major games. So, I mean, you would hope that you'll see him. Now, he had 2 days off that helps him a little bit, a little older body. He could get a day to rest up and this and that. But honestly, I don't know, man. Like, James Harden is the enigma to me of this series. Like, and I said him and then Tobias somewhat a little bit to see what Tobias is going to do. But James is an enigma to me, man, because, you know, James Harden is as vital as Joel Embiid is and how successful he is. To me, James Harden is like the MVP of the team, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like whenever he plays well and gets everybody involved and hits a little bit of shots, they do well. So what I mean is the most, I don't mean like he is the most valuable. I'm not saying he's the MVP, like how we think it, but he is the most valuable asset to the Sixers. Of course, we know Embiid can score, but when James Harden is getting everybody involved and doing what he does
and scoring,
they win and score, they win. When he struggles, they lose. So, like as you said, game one, game this, whatever day, whenever he played well, they won. Whenever he played poorly, they lost.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. And so for me, it is again about coming out right away and just getting off to a good start. They did finish with 22 points. They were only down 7 at the end of the first quarter, but a 15-3 run, that looked like it was going to be really ugly. You exerted a lot of energy in that comeback that you did to eventually take a 5-point lead in that third quarter. So getting off to another good start, as I talked about before game 6, after having a good start in games 4 and 5, I want to see them getting off to a good start yet again and seeing if they can keep that type of momentum going, because you know that you're going to get off, you're going to get a run at some point from the Boston Celtics. So if they get off to a good start, lead after the first quarter, I think that will tell a good story for the 76ers. I agree with you on the rebounding side of things. The Sixers did it in game 5. Boston did it in game 6. Philadelphia dominated on the defensive glass, collecting those misses of the Boston Celtics. When the Sixers, again, make or miss league, and this game was all about misses for the Sixers, they missed their shots. Boston grabbed those defensive rebounds, which did not allow for more opportunities for the Sixers. And it's crazy because the Sixers forced more turnovers, outshot the Celtics by 5, and still again came away with the loss. The other thing for me, Keith, is when you talk about making shots, it was 15-8 in favor of Boston at the three-point line on Thursday. They have to make their shots again. I mean, it's very simple. It's game 7, make or miss league, all these cliches we want to talk about. Got to hit your shots, man. And you got to hit those 3-pointers, and you got to close out, because a lot of those were some open looks for the Boston Celtics. Al Horford may not miss 7 again. He may not miss 5 again. You're probably not going to get another poor performance from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, where Tatum has to go off like he did on Thursday. So they're going to have to make sure that they do their job defending the 3-point line and shooting it well from beyond as well. So those are my keys, man. Get off to a good start, rebound the basketball, make your threes, close out on the threes on the other end. And I think they'll be in a good position. And if I had to wrap it up here, which I'm basically going to do, the first 5 minutes of the game were key in game 6, and so were the last 5 minutes in game 6. So you start off well, you end well, you win the basketball game. All right. All right. Well, folks, when we come back, we'll be talking about game 7 and what took place, either going home for the summer or moving on, coming home for game 1 against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Thank you all for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day and every dayers. We will talk to you once this thing is over on Sunday, game 7, some early evening, since it's a 3:30 tip time. Again, for folks who don't know, Sixers Celtics, 3:30 from the Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, and things will be done early evening on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Hope you have a great day. And maybe the Sixers, for all the Sixer moms out there, maybe the Sixers will give you another gift, and that is the gift of victory and moving on and advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. Keith, as always, man, thank you. And do you mind letting the good folks know where they can find us?
Yeah, first of all, what you need to do is you need to follow our podcast. You need to become a subscriber. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts at, right? And then for the YouTube, what you need to do is when you get onto the YouTube channel, you go to the Liberty Bell, you click on the Liberty Bell, and you become a new subscriber. Once you become a new subscriber, you get notifications and the whole 9, right? But also, you need to follow my man D on a Devon Given show on 97.5 FM. Now he'll be on there today on Sunday from 1 to 3:15 p.m. breaking down everything for you, breaking it all down, right? So 1 to 3:15 p.m., right? Then also follow D on Twitter, especially during this game. You got to keep up with what he has to say about the game. So you do that at Devon G 975, right? And then follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers, and you can read my game coverage from the game on Enquirer.com and in the Philadelphia Inquirer.
All right, Keith. We'll be talking to you, man. Talking to you after the game, probably live from Boston, right? So we'll get your reaction to the game as things wrap up. And folks, we'll talk to you then. Keith, enjoy it. Again, all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day. And we'll talk to you after Game 7.
Peace.